Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Our Home Ground. I am, of course, so happy to be here as I am every week. Glad that you guys are here too. Like I said at the end of last episode, it is the best time of the year. WSL is happening, other European leagues are happening, NWSL is happening, Champions League's happening. It's just so good. There is so much to talk about all the time. And also, Asian Cup is randomly happening right now as well. We have a lot to cover today, so we're just going to talk about a few things quickly. I'm not going to go through the whole NWSL opening weekend, though I do think there were some really interesting things that happened, but we're just going to talk about two of them, and I'm sure it's predictable what they're going to be because, weird that it happened. But we're going to talk about the two new expansion teams. Boston Legacy hosted their inaugural game. It was their first game in the NWSL, and they set the record for inaugural home opener or something. It felt like when I read it that it was like this very, very specific situation, which if it's inaugural home opener, then I also think that Denver Summit is going to be that next week when they host their home opener because they've sold like 50,000 tickets or something crazy. Anyways, they played at Gillette Stadium. They played Gotham, ended up losing to Gotham 1-0, who are the defending champions. So, not a bad start. The tough part of this was that Bianca St-Georges got a red card in the 79th minute. It was an accumulation. She had gotten a yellow card earlier in the game and then got a second yellow and red. So they played the last 10 or so minutes of the game down a player. So that was a very unfortunate start to the club debut, but what can you do? Denver Summit played their first game at BFC, so they were away for their inaugural game, but still very exciting. They ended up losing, I think, 2-1 to Bay. And in the 27th minute, Janine Sonis got a straight red card from an accidentally nasty tackle. She was like immediately apologetic. I actually was unable to watch that game specifically, but I've watched many a replay of the foul. It was a red card. I think she thought she was lucky that she got away with not a red card because it just came off wrong. Like, I don't think there was malintent or anything like that, but it just wasn't quite right. And so she ended up with a straight red. This was about 7 minutes after she had the assist for the club's first ever goal. So, wild way to end up on the stat sheet with an assist and then a red card 7 minutes later in the 27th minute of the game. Like, that is so early. So, Denver played basically the whole game, three-quarters of the game, a man down. So not great for them. Also wild that both of these new expansion teams got red cards in their first games. Both of them. Crazy enough that one of them, but the fact that it was both of them is just like so silly. There was also a weather delay in the Orlando game. And now I'm forgetting Orlando game. Seattle beat Orlando. But many a tweet of like two red cards and a weather delay. Welcome back, NWSL. It's Chaos League in the best way. I love it so much. I think it's so fun, but it's chaos. And this weekend did not disappoint. There was a ton of chaos in this opening weekend. So, very excited about that. Moving on from the NWSL, let's talk Asian Cup. This morning at the time that I'm recording this, which is Tuesday, Australia beat China PR in the semifinal of the Asian Cup. So they are going to the final of the Asian Cup. I'm so excited for them. I'm a huge Tillies fan, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but I started following them in the 2023 World Cup that they hosted when the US women's national team dropped out early. Dropped out. They were beat by Sweden. Anyways, I still wanted to continue watching the tournament, and I am famously really, really bad at watching as a neutral. And so I had to pick a team to support. I picked England and Australia because my heart said, obviously, root for the home team. I just didn't think they would get that far. So then I was like, I also want to root for a team that, for whatever reason, I really like. Leah Williamson had gone on Toe and Heath's podcast. I'm getting way more into this than I meant to. Leah Williamson had gone on Toe and Heath's podcast. So I was like, well, I'll support the Lionesses. She sold me on it. And then obviously I wanted to support Australia, the home team, and then they ended up playing in the semifinal. Anyways, since then I've been a big Tillies fan. Obviously, all of you know I'm an Arsenal fan. Three Matildas play for Arsenal: Steph Catley, Caitlin Foord, and Kyra Cooney Cross. So very easy to continue to support that. But I want to talk about a couple of things in specific when it comes to the Matildas and this tournament. Number one is Sam Kerr. She tore her ACL in January of 2024. I actually remember like where I was when I heard that news because it was devastating for me. Again, we'll talk about this. This is like a foreshadowing of something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. I really love Sam Kerr. I was devastated when I found out that she tore her ACL. And then it took her like 18 months to come back. And I think there have been a lot of criticisms about her and her form at Chelsea. She hasn't just sort of like immediately bounced back into her like perfect form that she was in. I think you when you think of the perfect recovery, Beth Mead comes to mind. She like came back and was immediately like assisting scoring goals again. Like it was crazy. Most people don't do that. It takes them a little bit of time to relearn their body. They literally had to relearn how to walk. So obviously they need to relearn how to play football. Anyways, but Sam Kerr for Australia has just been in incredible form. I am so excited for her. I'm so happy for her that she's like back to the Sam Kerr that we all know and love. She's scoring big goals. She scored the game winner against China this morning and whenever you're listening to this in that game. And she like ran over and like jumped up. Was that today that she jumped up? No, today she did this like head pointing celebration. I wasn't exactly sure. And then Caitlin Foord, who had the gorgeous ball through. And it's actually even the ball before that, two balls before that I'm most impressed by was Kaitlyn Torpey. She has really, really stepped up in this tournament. She's not somebody that I meant to talk about, but here we are. She has stepped up as Steph Catley was out with concussion protocol. Caitlyn Torpey stepped in and has been playing and played a full game at left back. Her first start ever. She played the full 90 in the quarterfinal to help get them through to the semifinal. It's excellent. In this game, she like went in for kind of a tackle or like stuck her foot in and won the ball and got it passed up to Sam. Sam dished it off to Caitlin Foord, who played this perfect through ball. Sam Kerr like ran onto it. She sprinted onto it because she had to because the goalkeeper was coming out. She took like one touch around the goalie. And then on a really tight angle, just like put it in the back of the net. Sam Kerr doing Sam Kerr things is so exciting, and I just love it. And then she's brought back the fun sellies. She has not done a backflip. I would be shocked if we ever saw her do a backflip again. Maybe if she scores in the final, who knows? Please be careful of your body. But in the quarterfinal, when she scored, she like went and she like jumped up and like stood on the I don't even know what to call it. This like side media boards or whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. Just iconic. So, so, so happy to see Sam Kerr back doing Sam Kerr things. She is just such a fun footballer to watch. So, look out for her. Another person I want to talk about is Caitlin Foord. The passion that this woman plays with is always incredible. If you think back to like the Champions League final when Arsenal beat Barcelona 1-0. She had this like last ditch tackle to block Fridolino Rolfo from crossing the ball. And she like stood up and like screamed and like fist pumped. It was crazy. That's that level, Champions League final level passion is the way that she's been playing this entire tournament. And I actually would argue every time she puts on that Matilda's uniform, probably also every time she puts on the Arsenal uniform, but there's something that comes over her when she plays for Australia that is just so fun. And I love it so much. The passion that she brings. And I think Sam Kerr too, like they do things in an Australia jersey that I've never seen them do in any other jersey. And so I just think it's so cool that clearly they take so much pride in playing for their country. And so I'm a big fan of it and it's been really exciting. Emily Van Egmond just made her 170th appearance for the Matildas, making her the most capped Matilda of all time. So that's really exciting and incredibly impressive. Sam, Caitlin Foord, and Emily Van Egmond this is their 8th major tournament they are playing together. So Asian Cup, World Cup, Olympics, I think are all included in that. So this is their 8th. That is so many. They've been literally playing together for like 16 years. I'm making that number up, but it's close to that because I think they all got like their first senior call-ups when they were like 14, 15, 16, kind of in that age, and now they're all like 30. So it's been so many years and it's just incredible and I love it for them. And then the player that we have to talk about that everybody's talking about right now, and I also still don't feel like it's enough, is Alanna Kennedy. She was leading, and I think at this moment still is technically leading. Japan hasn't played their semifinal yet, but the Golden Boot race for the Asian Cup, which is so funny because traditionally she has played in a center back role for the Matildas and across most places. Lately, they have moved her. They started at Angel City and it has carried over at the Matildas. She has been playing in that like defensive midfielder position. So, either way, still a very defensive position. And she has scored 4 goals in 5 games, I think, or something. Maybe 5 goals too. I can't remember now, but whatever it is, certainly she scored 4 goals in 2 games. She had 2 braces. Crazy. Like, it's just so fun when a player just shows up, steps up. I think there have been some like open questions about her performance of late. She didn't get a ton of playing time at Angel City. That was kind of a weird situation. Then she went over to London City Lionesses and has been playing pretty regular minutes for them as a center back. But then coming into this tournament, they like didn't start her at center back. She wasn't even starting at the beginning of the tournament. Let me tell you, she is starting now. Joe Montemuro cannot not start her. She's a goal scoring machine. But it's just so funny and so silly when these kinds of things happen. I love it. I'm a big fan. And so, yeah, just love all the things that's happening for the Matildas during the Asian Cup. The Asian Cup turnout has been incredible. There have been a ton of fans at every game. Like, I think Australia knows how to host a tournament. That's what I'll say. And so, really excited for them and excited to watch the final, theoretically, if I can find it anywhere, because finding these games in the US has been very difficult, but I would love to watch that final. All right. I think that wraps up what I want to talk about Australia form at the Asian Cup. Moving on to Kat Macario. Hello. I know I haven't done any sort of roundup about the transfer window for the NWSL because A, it's been so many and I don't even like really know where to begin. So I'll probably just do like a highlight of each of the teams. And then that's so crazy that I just said that because that's literally exactly what I did for the WSL too. And I just like acted like I made something new. Anyways, moving on from that, Kat Macario, we're back to her. She just signed with the San Diego Wave for a record-breaking contract, $8 million over 5 years. It's what it's rumored to be. Of course, none of these things are like officially released, but that's the rumor. Rumor is there's also like bonuses in, so she could make more money than that, which is just so cool. I love it so much. I am so excited for her. She historically has been somebody who everyone who's a US Women's National Team fan has been like really, really excited about. She has struggled with injury. She had that really long ACL recovery, almost 2 years. Now she's out again with, I believe, a heel injury, is what they were reporting during US Women's National Team games. But I just hope that she goes to San Diego and flies. She's incredible. I'm so excited for her. She can be just such a lethal goal scorer and playmaker. And so it's just so exciting to have her back in the NWSL. And I think this kind of talks a little bit to this point of like the freak out last year when Naomi Girma and then Alyssa Thompson and Emily Fox, like these people, Jen and Eiswanger had left multiple players who were at the time with the US Women's National Team, and most of them still currently are left to go play in Europe. And I think everybody was like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, is this the death of the NWSL? No, it's not. And clearly, we've got players coming back. Lindsay Heaps is coming back to play for Denver at the end of her season with Lyon. Kat Macario is now back. And the other thing I want to say about this is Kat Macario's deal broke the record that had just been set by Trinity Rodman when she resigned in January. And I would just like to acknowledge that this is two Black women just continuing to blow down barriers, bust through any sort of like red tape or anybody trying to hold them back, blowing records out of the water. And I just love it so much. I think it's so impressive. And I'm just really, really excited about it. Bay, these women, they deserve it. They are so fun to watch and so exciting. I don't know enough about this. What are we calling it? Impact player, I think, thing that the NWSL did. But I also am not necessarily like just abolish the salary cap. So I don't know what the answer is. Clearly, if there was like a really obvious, easy answer, it seems like would have we would have found that. I don't know because Anyways, that's not what we're talking about today. That's a whole different thing that we've talked about some, and maybe we'll talk about again at a later date. But that's that. Go Cat Macario. Okay, the last thing that I want to talk about today is this sort of like idea that I wrestled with for a long time, and it was actually brought up by Alex Scott after the Chelsea Tottenham game. They were doing these like hot takes. It was Alex Scott, Farrah Williams, and Ellen White were like they were the pundits, and so they were talking, or yeah, I think that's what they're called, pundits, maybe. Anyways, they were doing these like hot takes where Alex would say like here's a hot take that I think these fans had like submitted. I'm not exactly sure how they got these things, but here we are. So Alex read a hot take that said that if women's football wants to progress to the next level, I'm a little bit confused even what that means, but I digress. They have to ditch fans who are only fans of individual players and not supporters of the club. So essentially what they're saying is like people shouldn't just support individual players because that's holding women's football back, which I think is a weird take. But it's supposed to be a hot take. Like, I think it's supposed to be controversial. And for potentially the first time ever in my life, I agree with Farrah Williams. I I struggle with Farrah Williams. She's a huge Chelsea supporter, which is probably problem number one. But I just feel like she has a lot of trouble being impartial. Whereas, like, Alex Scott is obviously a huge Arsenal fan, and again, this is probably biased because I'm an Arsenal fan, not a Chelsea fan. But I think I'm not the only person who feels this way. I just feel like Alex Scott does a much better job of still being like fair and honest. Whereas I feel like Farrah Williams is always like, go Chelsea! Like, even when they're not performing well, she's like, yeah, but like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. And it's like, well, it kind of does matter. Anyways, for the first time ever, Farrah Williams and I agreed. She just kind of laughed when Alex Scott said this. It was like, well, we're going to lose all of our fans then. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. But something that she pointed out that I thought was really sweet and wholesome was she was like, she and Ellen White were both like, yeah, like we'll lose a lot of fans. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. They didn't really go on past that. But then Farrah was talking about how, because this was after the Tottenham Chelsea game, she was like, there was a little girl over there in a Tottenham shirt, but she was holding a sign that she had clearly made that had like Hannah Hampton's face all over it. And so this little girl was probably put in a Tottenham shirt by her mom, dad, whoever, adult figure in her life who's a Tottenham supporter. But this little girl might be just like somebody who wants to be a goalie and grow up and be like Hannah Hampton and like idolizes Hannah Hampton. And like that's okay, is what Farrah was arguing because Hannah Hampton is like England's number one in the Lionesses. And that's the point Ellen White was making. And she was like, a lot of people have started coming out to football matches like WSL matches because they want to get a glimpse at the Lionesses. They want to see them. They want to follow them. They like want to know. And so if we like take that option away or like told people that was like wrong or bad, then our attendance is going to go way down. Our fandom is going to go way down. And I agree. I don't think it's just for like the little kids who are growing up in a family that supports something specific or a specific club. I think it's complicated and I think it depends on the way that you carry yourself, right? Like I am an Arsenal fan through and through. I have committed to the club. And I am a humongous Beth Mead fan. She is one of the players that got me back into actually following women's soccer. Again, I alluded to this earlier. When I got back into women's soccer, I've talked about this on the podcast before, was the 2023 World Cup. I was so locked in on the US women's national team. Then they lost in the round of 16. There were still like quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals with 3 rounds of the tournament left. And I wanted to keep following it. And so I picked 2 other teams. One of them was England because Leah Williamson had recently been on Tobin Heath and Kristen Press's podcast, The Recap Show. And they mentioned that she had like an ACL. And then I was sort of paying attention after the tournament. Hold on, I should wait and not go to that part yet. So I started being interested in the Lionesses. Just the way that she spoke about them, I thought was so interesting. I mean, listening to Leah Williamson speak is like could convince anyone of anything, I think. But maybe that's just me. Who knows? But the other team I was supporting was Australia, and Sam Kerr was like fighting through this calf injury, and so I became a really big fan of Sam Kerr, and I was like so excited. She also, at the time, dated, now is married, and has a child with Christy Mewis, who was on the U.S. Women's National Team. And I was like, this makes a lot of sense. This works, whatever. Loved Sam Kerr, but also really fascinated by like Steph Catley and Caitlin Foord. And then when the tournament was over, I was like, well, I want to choose a WSL team to support because I was supporting Angel City already in the NWSL. And I was like, well, I need a WSL team. And so I was genuinely in between Chelsea and Arsenal. But I realized the only reason I really wanted to support Chelsea was because of Sam Kerr, but I wanted to support Arsenal because of this sort of like comeback and the storytelling of Leah Williamson's ACL and Beth Mead and Viv Miedema's ACL, and so I was locked in. So I ended up choosing Arsenal. And part of it was because of these ACL comebacks. If you follow WSL, you know that Viv Miedema is no longer playing for Arsenal. She now plays for Man City. And like I just refuse to believe that I have to not like her anymore. I just don't feel like that's fair. I got invested in this sport and following it and building the community that I have now and all of these things, partially because of supporting her. And yeah, like I'm not gonna cheer for Viv over Arsenal ever. I'm always gonna cheer. But I will be happy to see her successful. And I think that's okay. And I feel the same way about Sam Kerr. I had posted on my story on my personal Instagram story about Sam Kerr and the goal that she scored in the quarterfinal. And I had a couple of friends respond and we're like, whoa, we don't want her in this good of form right before we play Chelsea in the Champions League, we being Arsenal. And I was like, guys, I want to see Sam Kerr doing Sam Kerr stuff. I really hope that it's not against Arsenal and that our defense and style of play is able to like shut her down and contain her. But like I want individual players to do really well, and I refuse to think that that's a bad take. And I think it all just sort of comes back to like obviously, yes, as everyone who's listening knows or has ever listened to me talk or seen me in public or talked to me a single time in your life, I'm an Arsenal fan. That's very important to me. And I'm just a fan of the women's game in general. I do love so many individual players in the NWSL because I'm such a US Women's National Team supporter that I want to see them do well. Because if you're doing well for club, then it's going to translate well and you're going to do well for country. And I recognize that going into a World Cup, being a fan of the US Women's National Team Lionesses and the Matildas is going to be complicated. And that's okay. I can want all of these individual teams to do really well, but when it comes down to it, I want the US Women's National Team to win every time. But that doesn't mean that I can't be happy for individuals, that I can't be happy for Steph Catley and Kyra Cooney-Cross and Caitlin Foord to be doing really well with Australia, potentially at the World Cup, or for Sam Kerr to be doing well with them, or for any of the and all of the Arsenal Lionesses to be doing well. Like I think there's space for all of it. I think this is one of those things where we don't have to take this like my club at all cost like gross attitude from the men's game and put that on the women's game, because I think so many of us have arrived in this place and become supporters of the women's game in general. And like yeah, we're all going to have like loyalties or allegiances and we're going to pick teams or we're going to pick players or whatever, but I just because you pick a team, I don't think that means that you can't also support an individual player. I'll be honest, when I saw Arsenal play Chelsea like 2 years ago in the preseason game in Washington, D.C., I took a selfie with Hannah Hampton in my Arsenal shirt, and she was clearly in her Chelsea shirt. But like, that's Hannah Hampton, and she is the number one for England, and she's a fantastic goalkeeper, and she's the number one for Chelsea. Like, that's fantastic. She is incredible, and I can be happy for her and happy for that, and also want my team to beat them. Like, I think all of these things can exist. I think what this hot take was trying to come out was like somebody who like pretends to be like an Arsenal fan, and then they like trade Viv Miedema and they like jump ship. And they're like, never mind. I don't, I just like don't see that happening. And I think it's okay to still respect Viv. Like when she came and played at the Emirates the first time, and then she got a standing ovation when she like walked off the pitch. Like I think that's fine. I think that's respectful. And she did so much for the club. And I can, as a fan of Arsenal, I think it's reasonable and would be crazy if I was just like, nah, screw her, blah, blah, blah. Like, hold on. She has done so much for the club, helped us win trophies, like all of those things. And now I'm just going on a tangent, but like, yeah, am I going to be devastated if they don't offer Beth Mead a new contract if she doesn't stay? Yeah, I will be because she's one of my favorite players of all time. Will I stop being a fan of hers because she doesn't play for Chelsea? Whoa. Will I stop being a fan of hers because she doesn't play for Arsenal? No, I won't. Like, I will still be a fan of her and I will still want her to do well. And I will still want Arsenal to beat whatever team she plays for. Like, I think there's space for all of it. And if she scored a goal against Arsenal, I'd be like, what can you do? But hopefully they'll just re-sign her and we'll never have to worry about that. And she'll just retire eventually in many, many years from Arsenal. And it'll be no problem because that's what I'm thinking will happen. Anyways, I think that's all I have to say for today. I feel like I was talking so fast and I felt like I had so much to cover. There's so much I didn't even talk about. I did not talk about the WSL. I didn't even acknowledge that Chelsea won the Subway Cup this weekend. They did. They won the League Cup. They beat Man United 2-0. I watched the first half of the game. That was it. I didn't watch the second half. Congratulations to Chelsea. I don't have much else to say about that. They won a trophy. That's what Chelsea does. Chelsea wins a lot of trophies, and that's okay. Good for them. I'm happy. I don't know if I'm trying to convince you or me, but it's fine. Anyways, I think that's all I have. So thank you so much for being here. If you don't mind engaging in this video, however, liking, commenting, subscribing to the YouTube channel, following me on Instagram. I don't know. I hope you all have a great week, and I'll catch you next time.